From a professional soccer career to becoming a driving force in the mortgage industry, Brian Covey has shown what it takes to find your competitive edge. Get off the sidelines and get in the game. Find your competitive edge with Brian Covey.
What's up, guys, and welcome back to another edition of Finding Your Competitive Edge. So our guest today, I'm just going to tell you guys, not only have I spent some time working out with him, studying him, seeing what he has done live and in person, but following Charlie, I will tell you this, is a former professional baseball player, former professional athlete, now who's a performance coach. And some of the companies you'd recognize that you will see out there that he works with, everybody that I have seen him touch and work with, they're better. And that's the people I want to be around. So today we're going to break down Charlie Ruiz, not only former professional baseball player, but performance coach. And I love he and one of our friends talk about this. This isn't motivation. This isn't going to be, maybe it will inspire you. We're actually going to talk about some of the tactics and strategies in your own life. You know where you can be great. Maybe you're just performing good or an average. And so as Charlie's gone through some of his story, now he's a speaker, facilitator, working with companies like Google, some of the companies you guys will recognize out there, Salesforce and some others. He is helping companies and individuals perform at an elite level. Those are the people we want to be around. So we're going to talk about that today, his transition from being a professional athlete. Now he's a family man and married with kids and all these things happening in his own life. I want you to listen as he goes through some of his story, because you're going to find probably a lot of your story. And even if you weren't a professional athlete, the reality is today you're showing up to compete in some area of your life, to become more fit, maybe to make more money, to make a bigger impact in where you are, maybe to move up in the organization where you are. Heck, it might just be you want to have a better 2024 than you did last year. So we're going to help you with that. Charlie, my friend, welcome.
Man, thank you. Thank you for that introduction. And I'm so honored to be here, Brian.
Well, I got to start back in Vegas. So we're in Vegas just a couple months ago at Ben Newman's boot camp. And number one, I'm going to say this because people are already curated. And I knew when I met you, your energy right away. I could tell by your smile. I kind of knew a little bit about your backstory because I was like, okay, I like to know who's going to be in the room. Like anyone that's played at a professional level, I already have this respect. So the way you showed up, I just want to commend you, because a lot of people go to these events and they're just bystanders. They're almost like, I'm kind of here. I'm not sure what to expect. But you showed up, you competed, you were focused, you were there intentionally to get something out of it. So I want to kind of start with that. Is a lot of people wonder, Charlie, like, why should I go to an event like this? Like, why were you there at the level you're performing at? Why would a guy like you show up to that?
To level up.
Yeah.
I think it was knowing the type of individuals that were going to be there as one lens, but also I wanted to learn. And I think the biggest part of my journey over the past at least year and a half, 2 years specifically, was how can I continue to learn and be in a room with individuals, groups, and mindset and people that I'm not used to, right? And as a young business owner, I was like, let me go learn from the people who have been doing this, who are established. So for me, it was all about learning and finding another way to up level.
Yeah, I want to point this out. People won't know this unless they were there, but you actually had your birthday while you were there. We found out, and we talk about commitment. And so like anybody, we all have these excuses. And I look at some of these conferences, I'm like, I can't go because of this or can't go because of that. And there are valid reasons, but you went on your birthday, man. Like you showed up, which shows the commitment. What made you decide, I'm going to go on my birthday, I'm going to go to this room and level up around people that maybe are further along, maybe in years, but not necessarily in results?
I think it was a culmination of where my journey had taken to that moment and the support of my family, being at home, knowing how important that day was, right? October 10th, 10/10, I was launching my new website, taking a step into this new journey. And it just made sense to be able to do it in Vegas, in that room with those people, learning and growing together, both physically and mentally. It was a no-brainer. So it stood to be truly one of the most memorable birthdays that I've had. And we celebrated when I got home, and my family was absolutely thrilled to have been part of it, as you saw in the room.
Yeah, I loved it. Let's go back. I want to get some lessons later, but I want to go back because achieving the status you did, I mean, I know some baseball players, like those are usually some of the guys the soccer team would hang out with, right? We get along pretty well. And your journey to get to that level, Let's talk about, because I know there's got to be some ups and downs of what happened. Let's walk people through a little bit of your journey to get to that level, because as I was looking through, very similar to mine, it was not just as I call it, the sunshine path, right? Like you had some obstacles along the way.
It was not sunshines and rainbows, Brian. Some people don't know. I only played 1 year of varsity baseball, which is kind of wild when I think about that. It was 1 year. I was hurt. I was a basketball two-way guy, and I had gotten hurt. So I played 1 year senior baseball, varsity baseball, and was a junior college guy. So I was a junior college guy who went there and just wanted to play. I was at a powerhouse program in Northern California, and a lot of guys were well established on their way to D1s, and I just wanted a shot. Fortunately, I was able to succeed enough to get a shot. And again, just kept kind of climbing to land a scholarship at Long Beach State down in Southern California, which is a dream school of mine. And even there, it was, I just want to find some way to contribute to my team and get innings. And then when you contribute daily at practice, eventually I found myself closing ball games for, the Long Beach State Dirtbags, and was fortunate to get drafted in the 10th round by the Colorado Rockies, something I never had imagined would happen in my life.
And you get the nickname, the closer. And so I saw that too. I saw the basketball thing, and I played basketball long enough to realize that's not going to be my sport forever. Like soccer, Brian, you've got a better pathway there. And
Sure.
For you to go in and to convert it over, it speaks to two things. One, I love you talk about this, because there is somewhat of that debate now online of kids should focus on one sport or play multiple sports. As I'm studying for years, I'm like, man, what a cool story of how you took your athleticism and hand-eye coordination and all these things of discipline, and you convert over. And like you said, you just wanted to play. So what are your thoughts on that, playing multiple sports and just your own experience through that?
I think it's wildly important, especially at such a young age, to be able to learn not just from different coaches, but different schemes, and to let the body kind of adapt and pivot. I've always been such a big fan of kids who play multiple sports. And I know in today's age, especially in baseball, travel ball heavy, a lot of organizations or a lot of people say, I'm just going to have my kid play one thing. But I think that some of the best athletes out there do have a myriad of sport background. And I think it helps them both mentally and physically.
Yeah, I've seen that. I mean, I look back, I'm like, had I not done the other sports, and even our kids, like making sure they play those, it comes through. I want to talk about your nickname though, because you mentioned this earlier, the closer. A lot of pressure, right? Like I was a goalkeeper. You're coming in closing games. There is pressure beyond. I always say, look, there's different pressures in different positions, but we can all probably agree, if you're the quarterback, like watching the game yesterday, you're closing out a game in baseball, you're the goalkeeper, or one of those positions, there's extra pressure. Let's just call it what it is. Talk to me about that. Yeah.
It's expected. I think that what I learned in my junior college days was kind of owning that responsibility. I took it to heart. I took it personal, which is why the mindset, the mental game became such a huge pillar for my performance, at the time. And then I think knowing that the pressure is going to be there, it just allowed me to systemize everything that I was doing. And there's just something about, right, your team being able to not just show up at the very end of the game to close out a ball game, to get the W, but I think it was less about the actual physical part of playing. It was after the game, when you're shaking hands, when you're doing the fist pumps in the locker room, because you just helped complete what your team had put on, on a platter for you. The best feeling to be able to say, hey, I contributed to my team, and knowing that the pressure is always going to be there, was like, I'm doing this for my team. I'm doing this for my team. Best feeling in the world.
Hey guys, it's Brian here. I hope you are enjoying the show. By the way, if you're an entrepreneur or a solopreneur looking to grow your personal brand, make a bigger impact, maybe increase your leads and grow your revenue, let's help you get started today by connecting up with my friends over at the Brand Builders Group. You've heard me talk about them, but if you're new here, this is definitely the first step to get you started in turning your reputation into revenue. Head over to freebrandcall.com/Brian Covey. Again, to set up your free brand call, go to freebrandcall.com brandbuilders.com/Brian Covey to set up a free strategy call with one of the team at Brand Builders, and they will dive into your specific goals for how you want to grow your personal brand. I can't wait to hear how it goes. I can tell you're a team guy, and respect to that, because you can see the people that when they assemble teams, and a lot of people don't realize this in sports, we're teaching our kids this, is when you get out in life and you have a business or you're working in a business for someone else, you can get along with people. You can help other people perform at their best. Everybody wants great teammates. Nobody wants that person that's not. And I kind of hear that with you. And then you also brought up something important that we talk about a lot. And I know we resonate on this mental toughness. And you've gone into that arena. Is that when you started to realize the importance of a mindset? And when was that brought to your attention of, hey, Charlie, you can be a great athlete physically, but your mindset is a component to your success moving to every new level?
It first came to me in junior college. My coach was heavy on the sports psychology side of the game, but also very hard-nosed, very disciplined. And I just knew I'm not a 6'3", 6'4", 95 to 100 mile an hour guy. I'm 6'1", 88 to 92. I got a good split finger. But when I learned that it was my mindset and my routine, my breath work, that was going to be something that differentiated me, I leaned into it and didn't know as much until I got to Long Beach State. And then I sat in the dugout with the godfather of sports psychology, Dr. Ken Ruiz. He passed a few years ago, but is wildly known as like the source of heads up baseball and the mental game. So then I learned from him just different levels of it and started to just say, okay. If this has worked here in junior college and then it starts to work at Division I, then I get into the professional world with the Rockies and have my pitching coach tell me the exact same thing that allowed him to sustain a career. I just knew, all right, this is your differentiating piece. Lock in with the mind. It's the most important muscle we can build. So start building.
Dude, I love that. Well, so I was blessed too. My dad was a psychologist, and in high school, that's when we were introduced to like visualization and breath work and all of these things. And I remember, I'll be real, Charlie, like it was one of those, you're like, what are we doing at first? You're like, is this going to work? What are people going to think? You're looking around like, who's doing it? Who's not? It's weird. I'd love for you to dive back into that. If you can go back into those moments of when you were introduced to that. I know a lot of athletes may look at that and like, yeah, I know that works for some people. Yeah, I heard that worked for them. As you look back, what were some of the things that you learned through that? And I love you talk about breath work and, some of the psychology of building a mindset. Was there anything you look back tactically that you did before games or during games that helped you stay focused and locked in?
Two things come to mind. I think the pregame, call it a ritual or routine, was very important for me as I kind of studied other closers and other people specifically in baseball that had their own routine. Closers were always known as the kind of weird ones who would have this crazy regimen. They'd come in, they'd do all their thing, they'd have their ritual. I had a condensed version of it, but I had to have something to go to. So that was one thing, was what was I doing pregame in the bullpen before I came into the game? What affirmations would I tell myself, and what were my 3 fundamental keys that I would tell myself physically so my body would do what I wanted to do. That was a big part of it, was the pregame routine. And then once I was in the game, it was all about my slowing down the game when it would speed up. So it was focal points. A lot of my teammates would laugh or would look at me, and they knew what I was doing because I would tell them. I'd take my breath. I might have a rocky first batter or two. I would find myself taking off my hat, and under the bill of my hat, it would say less is more. It's also why you see it behind me, because it would remind me, right, that this game is simple. Throw strikes, less is more, keep it simple. I would do this little walk around the mound, take another big inhale and exhale, get on the mound, reset, and lock in on what I needed to do. So my focal point was my hat, and it forced me to slow down. For other people, it might be a foul pole or a blade of grass. For me, it was all about taking the hat off and looking at my bill.
Dude, I love that. And I love that you're that specific, because a lot of people, obviously from the soccer world, we teach them whether in the field, it might be some of their shin guard or shoe or something, and just recentering where they are is, if you're listening to this and you're an athlete or you're a parent of an athlete, these little details matter. And what I found is the ones that are able to create these routines and rituals, like you're talking about, you're going to face pressure, like in sports and in life. What are your cues? What are your responses to those so you're able to recenter?
Yes.
What was maybe one of your favorite moments where you were put on, the pressure is on Charlie, right? They're looking, they're like, hey, closer, we need you to step in there. What was one of your favorite moments that maybe even had the most immense pressure with it?
Oh man, you just give me goosebumps, Brian. My first thought, I'm gonna go with the gut, the first one, which is not my professional experience with the Rockies. It was actually going back to my junior college playoff, the first series. We had went down. So we're in Hayward. I'm at Chabot Junior College in Northern California. I hold those 2 years dearly to my heart. And we went down early. And because I was the closer, I would usually come in the 6th, 7th, 8th inning, maybe, right? But we went down early. And when you go down early in the playoffs and you're down 5-2 in the 2nd or 3rd inning and it just doesn't look good, sometimes the closer will get the ball to finish out the game and hope that the offense can come back and put a couple runs on the board. So I think I pitched 3 2/3 innings. And I went out there, which is something you don't do as a closer, right? You don't pitch more than 1 inning typically. And I just remember the fans. I had my family, all of my family there, which was also kind of very unique. And I went out there every single inning. And I just remember telling myself, knowing there was 3 innings and 3 innings left, was like 1 pitch, 1 out at a time. That is quite literally all you need to do is get the guy out who is in front of you and just keep doing that every single time. Nothing is changing from what you typically do. 1 person, 1 pitch, right here, right now, lock in. And then 3.5 innings go by. We got a couple runs on the board, finished with a 3-2 bases loaded, strikeout, split finger in the dirt. It was like that moment for me, I think, is probably the epitome of what the mental game had done for me. And it kind of set me on my trajectory.
Oh man, got me goosebumps listening to that. I'm like, I can put myself in there, and you're like, especially when your family's there and your friends and the crowds and things that you got to experience. And when that pressure is put on you and you perform, like you said earlier, I love you said this, was your team is counting on you. And when you're able to deliver, there is nothing like that feeling that is out there. And I'd love for you to kind of expand on that. Is the confidence built in those moments, was that able to help you later on? Because I'm sure you faced something, maybe not exactly, but probably something similar. And how do people build upon that when they've done it maybe once before?
Yeah, how to build on top of maybe an experience like that where you did have some success.
That's it.
I always work with, whether it's with my clients or I tell myself, have that highlight reel on deck, right? So think of those 3 to 5 moments. And maybe you didn't win, but maybe there was something that you were able to take from that loss or that lesson, but have them on deck. And I constantly remind them, you've been here before. And if you haven't, that's where the visualization comes in to be able to create it. But most of the time, when you're an elite performer, when you're an athlete, when you're an Olympian, when you're a business owner and you're speaking, you have a keynote, whatever it is, you've been there before. So I have them play out as much of the details that they did building up to that moment, whether it's closing their eyes, writing down a list of those moments. And I just have them read them out loud. Part of the morning affirmations. I've been here before. I know what to do. I've succeeded. I've learned. Like saying all those over and over again, it really brings it to life and it helps you create what happens in the future.
I love that. And I was looking at this too. On your website, you've got this cool CLR. And you talked about being a connector, which I relate to, man, because immediately when I met you, you're a connector. And I just want to affirm that in you. Like you showed up and you're connecting with people and you're asking questions about their story. And for anybody listening out there, the reason I'm sharing that with you is because you want to be a Charlie. When you show up to these events or you're going to a BNI or you're going to a networking group, the person that's the most curious and they're actually wanting to make connections, they will leave knowing more about everybody else. And then it makes you become this person who's like, I want to know more about them. And so talk to me a little bit about that CLR, how you became this person that I look at you as you are a great connector. And I think that's a gift you have, but maybe people out there, like, how do I become a great connector in my business and life?
Thank you for that. Thank you for that, Brian. And when I think of connection and CLR, just the quick backstory of CLR, right? It is my initials, but I'm named after my grandfathers, right? So Charles, Lawrence, Ruiz, both of my grandfathers are, one's Charles, one's Lawrence. And for me, it's almost an homage to them, but forever, I've always been known as CLR because of clearly from my initials. But when I think of connection, and that is kind of where my business kind of came up to, it's like, how can I connect people and in communities to the most important parts of how they show up? Really, it starts in the mind, it starts in the words and how we communicate, and it starts in knowing your identity and who you are. But the only way for me as I meet new people is to ask questions. So I want to commit to being curious when I do show up. I want to know about Brian. I want to know about Michelle. I want to understand where they come from and what their story is. And when I think about it, it takes me back to how many hours I spent on the baseball field shagging at batting practice. I don't know if you know how, I mean, everyone knows baseball is a very long sport. But when you shag and you sit in the bullpen for 2-3 hours a day for 20 years, you have an opportunity to do one of two things. Think about yourself or connect with your teammates and build relationships. And I held the relationships, and there's balloons because I guess that's what we do here. The relationships truly are one of the most important things for me, and they continue to be, which is part of my kind of sense to show up and create a business and programming around it.
So if somebody's out there and they're like, hey, I struggle with this, right? Like they are either shy or they've maybe self-proclaimed themselves as these introverts, and they're going to these events, so they want to go out there and meet more people. What were some of the things that helped you and help you today to actually become that connector to where it is more natural and they can show up and build these relationships?
I like the thread of connecting other people almost more than I like being able to connect with them myself. And I think by nature of me showing up to an event, in this case, right, where we met in Vegas, I was so curious as to how people thought and where they were from logistically. To me, it became like, I want to learn about this person, because then guess what? I can go introduce you to this person that may be able to actually help you. So my first thing is less about me. It's more about serving the people to connect them to each other. And then by nature of doing that, I think that for more of an introverted person, it can actually give you a whole different game plan. Surprisingly or not, I'm not a conference person. I worked in technology, Brian. Do you know how many conferences you go to? I am actually I'm the person who's sitting next to my colleagues who are doing the handshake thing. I'm to the side, like having some coffee, waiting for somebody to come over, and then I can connect them until I switch my whole approach and said, I'm gonna connect people to go help each other. Yeah. I want to be known as that.
Man. Well, and I love that. I had a mentor share that with me years ago of, Brian, everybody you meet potentially could help someone else that you're going to meet, or in your circle and your corner and all this already. Your job is just to pay attention, to listen, and then to take action in making the connection. And I love that you share, because this, I think, is one of the most underestimated skills and strategies. That it is back to an act of service is the way I look at it. Is if I can help somebody, and it's not in my area of expertise, right? Like we're at this event and there's several people that they need help in their business or other areas. I'm going, that is not going to come through me. I know what I know, but I know somebody over here. Maybe it's Charlie. Maybe it was Claudio was there, right? I go, Michelle, who was there. I go, well, hold on. You need to meet them because this is what they do. And then they always remember, man, you know what? Charlie introduced me to Chris over here, who helped me with my book launch or helped me with my website. Man, like that to me is like the exponential power, because nobody forgets of Charlie introduced me to that person, and now I'm in a better spot. And so I would love for you to expand on that, because I do think we live in this world of social. Yeah, I see you on social today doing that. And I have my own kind of strategy, but I'd love to know how you've taken that kind of the offline, online approach. You see people on social, but you also see them in person. Are there any strategies that you take maybe on social to do some of this?
Are there any strategies as far as connecting individuals?
Connecting people. Yeah.
I think I always lean into what do I know as my truth? Like, what do I know in my bones? And who is in that circle that I can learn and kind of ideate with? And then from there to find out what lane do they need to go, or what are they trying to accomplish? And then my mind always goes into, I've got a guy, I've got a gal. And that's always like in the back of my mind of, I want to be able to serve, going back to service first, right? If the greatest form of humanity is to be able to serve, I can't do that unless I'm curious and I know what they're trying to go attack. When I first started the business, I was like, I'm going to get into athlete transition. I'm going to just help athletes transition from their sports to life after. And then I realized I'm going to do that anyways. I want to just do that anyways, but I have to find out where they're going. And then I realized, oh, wait a second, especially in the social media world where there's so much noise. It's like, we have so many people out there that are trying to help. Let me just be the person to connect them. And that starts with me asking questions and not listening questions for me to take back and do a checkbox in myself. Is me asking questions so that I can understand the emotions and what they're going through, so I can connect them to the right person, not just a person.
Oh man, I love that. Well, let's talk about your transition.
Sure.
Look, I know what mine was like, and I know a lot of athletes, whether they were collegiate or professional, and the transition out can be hard. Yeah. What was your transition like moving out, and what have you learned? And I'd love to ask it this way: is what do you wish you knew when you were transitioning?
What do I wish I knew? I'll start with saying it was an unconventional, slow burn. It wasn't just immediate. But what I wish I would have known was that there's more people out there that are going through exactly what you're going through, and it's okay to not be okay. I think for the longest time, I had held I'd given so much gratitude and thanks for being in the opportunity. As I had shared, I never thought I would be there. This was a dream, not just for me, but for my entire family. Like, this was never thought I'd be there. So then when it didn't happen and I was taken away from me from shoulder surgery, it wasn't like it was immediate and I planned for it. It was just taken from me as I was climbing, doing all the things that you would want to do. So then when it was done, I was like, well, now what? I'm the person. Like, I'm the one here that was going to do all the things that we never dreamed of. So now I'm back. You go from signing autographs to not getting an interview. I wish I had somebody to talk to. I jokingly say, I wish I had someone like me who was going through it to talk to. I didn't have them, which is part of my whole, let me go help me 10 years ago.
I have a show. We released one today that fits this, and Roy Vaden, mentor, and works over at Brand Builders. We work with them, and he shares this quote, and I think Ed shares it: is you're most powerfully positioned to serve who you once were.
Brian, I think I may have texted you this. I saw that you had gone to that workshop, and it gives me goosebumps, and it's probably part of my origin story. So if I may,
please.
That was the catalyst for me. I had been working at a communications firm for 5 or 6 years, loved everything that I was about, understanding, learning how to work with some of the top organizations in the world. You name it: public speaking, delivering feedback, influence, expressing a point of view. Loved it. And then I realized how much I loved was the one-on-one aspect in the group training. But I had dismissed my background in sport. I had not talked about it. And then I have these people who have doctorates, MBAs, the Harvards, the Princetons, that I felt like I had no business being in that room. Say, hey, I don't think you understand how much your background and then this communication experience you're getting, how much you can mold it and go help other people. You just got to go find it. So I'm in the process at the middle of the pandemic. I have my second daughter and I'm looking for time. I'm like, I need to spend more time doing what I love, and I need to be here with my baby. So I start punching the numbers and I say, you know what? I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to go start my own business. And I had just finished a call with a young girl who was doing a presentation about an internship. We helped her with the structure of her presentation. And at the end of it, I said, there's nothing about you other than your degree and your product. What makes you smile? What makes you smile? She looked at me and was like, I'm sorry, what? And I was like, you just gave me your presentation, but you didn't tell me what made you, like something about you. And I swear she started to cry. So then I told her if there's anything she remembered from this call, it's not the presentation, it's that she can always answer that question. She was a sophomore in college. So then that's step one. Step two, I tell my CEO I'm going to be leaving. She says, well, what are you going to go do? So then I tell her, I think I'm going to go help myself 10 years ago, transition away from being an athlete. Then I'm going to help myself 5 years ago, getting out of software sales and trying to find my purpose and my mission in this world. I go for a run that afternoon, Brian, and I'm listening to the Ed Mylett and Rory Vaden podcast. And I hear in stride, if you're trying to find your purpose and trying to figure out what you need to go do in the world, answer these two questions. What breaks? See, again, the balloon.
Timely.
What breaks your heart? And who did you need 10 years ago? I'll never forget that moment. The street, I stopped, put it in my notes, and that was my catalyst. It's like, it's time, go. It's nearly 2 years ago.
I appreciate you sharing that, because I think a lot of people out there, we see these posts about, find your why and find your purpose and do all these things. And those two questions, very similar to me, where I was able to go, okay, I'm doing some of those things, but I need to be more intentional. I need to have more clarity on this. And then what's amazing, I'd love to hear your experience on this, is once I started to serve the people that I identify, because that was me 5 or 10 years ago. I know the struggles in and out of the office, in and out of different businesses, transitioning, all of it. And then you also think about what really upsets you or breaks your heart. Like really, what bothers you at your core when you see it or you hear about it, you're like, no, we're going to go fix that and change it. I think people don't think that way. They almost come at it from this weird approach. When you started to identify that for yourself, and now that you've been doing it for some time, what were some of the clues that you felt like, okay, I'm on the right path, right? Because I think that's what people are like, okay, I'm going to go do all this stuff. Were there confirmations or clues along the way for you?
Yeah, I think it started, the clues that I was on the right path is when I started to, like, in my mind, think about, I eventually want to work with, maybe a MLB coach, or this specific friend of mine who had been wildly successful, or I wanted to work within this specific industry, this specific type of product, organization, and help these people that I had just been aspiring to understand and learn about. And I started asking questions to my colleagues and friends, and doing free sessions here and there. And I would just ask in the middle of the pandemic, what are you doing for yourself today? Just 5 minutes. I'd say 5 minutes for the end of every conversation, say, what are you doing for yourself today? And no one would answer it with, like, conviction. I was like, answer it. And then they would ask me, and it forced me to answer it. So then I realized this is bigger than I thought. And then by me just committing to a year of putting out whatever was on my mind, which is the hardest thing to do in social media. I'm sure Brian, I've been kind of watching, like, it was the hardest thing to get comfortable with that. And then some of those people that I had thought about, I would love to eventually work with them, reached out to me. Hey man, what are you doing? And then that clue just kept going and picking up. And I started to say, wait a second, all I'm doing is serving me in what I needed. And by serving me and asking questions on what other people are doing for themselves, taking ownership back of where their feet are, everything started to unlock. Next thing you know, I started meeting individuals like yourself and found myself in this space of, it's not just clues, like these are connecting dots forward, backwards, and everywhere in between. And it's all around being able to define who you are at that moment and where your feet are. And I leaned in.
Man, I love that you shared that last piece of leaning in, because you took the action. And a lot of people, I think, where they get stuck in the, not necessarily analysis by paralysis, but like, well, maybe that's it. Maybe if I do this, or what if I tried that? And it's like, it sounds like for you, similar to me, is I just started to do some things, right? Like, here's who I'm going to serve. I started sharing my story a bit. And then what's so interesting is, you don't want to miss this, is, guys, yes, our mortgage team has grown because people reached out to me that were former athletes or resonated with the story. And like, that was me. Or when I got fired from my job, or my job got eliminated and we had our first 2 kids and the housing crisis, like, how did you get through that? Like, that is your story that connects with people. And what I finally realized, and you've done this, is when you start to share your story and you get past yourself, you're like, this story can help one person a day. If I help one person that listens to this and they go, that was me, I needed that today. You don't know who they are. They don't always respond. They don't always tell you. But I love that you've shown up there. And to take it one step further, Charlie, I would love to know, now that you're showing up and sharing your story, are there things within your story that you find people connect with more than others that kind of give you that confidence to share more? Or are you still on the journey of kind of figuring out what to share, parts of your story? Because you have a broad toolbox, I guess I would say. You have a lot of things you could share.
More the latter. Still figuring it out, and it's getting closer. Yeah. And I think part of this space, right, getting into coaching, right, this is one of the most saturated spaces you could be in, right? There's a lot of coaches out there, and I love it. I'm trying to take back the narrative of like, this is a good thing, right? People wanting to coach and serve and help other people. And I think what I've realized is that, yes, there is this part of being an athlete and being able to kind of redefine your new operating system in this world beyond sport that does resonate. And then I also think there's this part of being a parent, being a father, right? Being a husband, a friend, and understanding how important presence is. And I think one of the biggest things that's resonating is the difference of what winning looks like now beyond sport, beyond whatever you had previously thought winning was. And it's interesting to see and to hear athletes. I'm in 1 or 2 communities within athletes where it's like, wait a second, winning is a W on the scoreboard. And yes, I know that. And winning is also those small moments, those small conversations with your daughters, that conversation with your mom or dad in the morning, or it's that coffee shop conversation, or it's having, crazy story, but we won't have to go there, last Sunday, flying home on my daughter's birthday to set up for her birthday party and not landing until 8 hours later, and having it be one of the most scariest moments of my life to finally get my feet on the ground and have that Uber driver give me $2 bills to give to my daughters as a good luck. Walking into my house crying 8 hours late because I missed the beginning part of my daughter's birthday. The win was that singing happy birthday at 5:00, which for most, that wouldn't have been a win, but it was a win. Those are the wins. And that, I think, seems to be resonating more than anything, is people redefining what winning looks like in today's world.
Dude, I love that. I saw some of that you shared, and I think that is probably one of the biggest shifts that guys like yourself are able to help people make, is redefining what winning and success looks like, creating a scoreboard that matters. And I don't know if you've got one, but I'd love to know, like, Charlie, do you have a scoreboard now in your life that you use to measure your success in all these areas? Because you're a dad and a husband, and you got your business, and you're a friend to people. Like, you've got a lot of different hats that you wear today. Is there a scoreboard that helps you know if you're winning?
There's a scoreboard. Now, figuring out what metrics and how to put on there, that is also in motion. But I usually kind of equate it. And again, this is part of the work that I do with other individuals as well. I usually have what I call my core. I call them the 4 C's, right? It's the 4 C's, the 4 commitments that we make for our scoreboards. And I have the first one is your core. This is your mind and body. This is just for you. Just for you. What does Brian do for Brian to perform? What does Charlie do for Charlie? Your core, your mind, body. The second one that I have is your community. This is your relationships. This is your people. These are the people that you're showing up for, your family, your friends, your actual community. How are you keeping score there? And then third one I have is your craft. which we know so well, which is a lot of the time at the elite or the performance level, we put all of our eggs into the craft basket. We know what winning looks like there. Those are the metrics, the revenue targets, all of the numbers there. How am I keeping score here? And then the last one, which is kind of the fun one, truly, in the sense of the word of creativity. Where are we creating? Where are we playing? It goes back to that, the young Brian, someone who's playing soccer, like when you're telling him, hey, this is what you're creating today. You're creating podcasts, relationships, communities. Like, would he be proud? Would she be proud at what you're creating? And we also don't find time to play. And I'm so grateful for my daughters to be able to go play without an outcome. Because again, as a sport, as an athlete, we always play with an outcome. Now we got to find time we have to find time to play without an outcome. And that's where the creativity comes in.
Dude, that alone, I love the way you got the framework around it and people will resonate with it. And you had me thinking this morning, our youngest, our 8-year-old, is like, Dad, I want to go ride my bike. Well, it's misting and raining out that morning. It's a little cold. It's like, hey, buddy, go put your gloves on. We'll do that. And we just go like not even maybe a mile, right? We just ride the bike, come back, do a little footwork stuff. Yes. And I share that with everybody because as you're sharing that, I'm thinking, man, as parents, especially the parents listening, like creating that moment, we probably did 15 minutes, right? Like it wasn't like we were out there for an hour and we just rode a bike, came back. And those memories and creating that thing and that playfulness, I think that is what has been pulled out of so many of us. And go back to it. Go smile when the rain's just hitting your face and you're like, what am I doing? I had that moment of like, well, he's having fun. He doesn't care. He just wants to be. So thank you for how you show up, because what you've shared, and I could tell right away when we were talking, our conversations is you not only show up when I meet you or other people meet you, but you're the same way at home. And we need more leaders like that. And I think it's why you're successful in the performance coaching world and the teams and groups you work with is you have to lead by example. You have to have these experiences you've shared. What would be one thing as we close out that the younger version of Charlie, you wish you could have told them just in life, that maybe it was even like a belief you had that now is not true? You could go back and be like, man, I wish I knew this, or it wasn't really the truth. Like, here's what's true now. Anything that's changed for you?
What would I go tell younger Charlie?
Yeah.
The most important thing that you can do for yourself and for the people that you're around is to actually be present, is to just embrace the moment and where you are every single day and every single moment. I think especially at such a young age, you can get caught up in all the things that you should be doing. Mm-hmm. And then the faster we go, I think you realize how important it is to just be present. I mean, if it's the biggest gift we can give the people in front of us, then why do we not do it? Right? I think, you could see just here. Oh,
yeah.
My wife got me this sign because as I was asked one day about like what I want to do and how I want to show up, and it's like we prefer to be doing so many other things, and all the time, every single day, we prefer to be doing so many things. But if we can choose to be present over what our preference is at that moment, it truly is the biggest gift that we can give, not only to the person in front of us, but to ourselves. And I wish I would have known that earlier in my journey in sport and with my family more when I was coming up. And I hold that dear to my heart now. That's why I call my parents every single day, and probably have for the last 20 years.
I love that. And I love how you show up, my friend, because back from the dugouts and hanging with your team to now being a dad and all the way that you show up as a performance coach, people get to work with you are very blessed. And I know we talked about you've got a new newsletter, which we're going to plug in here. We'll put how you can sign up for that. We'll put all of Charlie's handles so you can connect with on social. And guys, I'll just tell you, you need a Charlie in your life. You need people like that are connectors that want the best for you. And whether you hire them to help coach you, which I believe accelerates your progress and your results, or you just bring them into your circle and you have them to where you can make these connections. Today, I hope you heard Charlie's heart about what he is doing now and how a lot of that was birthed early on. Think about your own journey and story. What are the things that you love and the playfulness and the creativity and all that you can now go and you can serve at a high level? So my friend, this is awesome. I love, we could chop it up for hours. And I just want to tell you, like, I'm thankful for you, because these type of, as you said, going to these events, require us to move things around. We've got all these other things we could be doing, but I always think back to, man, that one event, I get to meet somebody like you, and then we have this conversation, and now we're going to get to bless however many people get to listen to it. I mean, that is what life is about. So as you're listening to this, go back. And my ask and my challenge to you is, what is the one thing that you heard that Charlie shared and you go, that's what I need to go do now. You need to go take action on it. And you do, because you kind of have that urge and that calling that's there. I would tell you that one of those steps could be just connect with Charlie, connect with myself, DM us, let us know, hey, what stood out? What help do you need? I know a lot of you guys will reach out after the show, and we will connect you to whoever it might be, if it's not one of us. But Charlie, I just want to thank you, man, for coming on, spending the time, investing. This is going to be outstanding. And I know that our paths are going to continue to cross, because just listening today, I learned some new things. I'm like, oh, my brain is going, now I need to get you over here or doing that. And, these are the conversations I think we should all be having. So thank you.
Thank you. Honored to be here. Honored to be here, Brian. Absolute pleasure.
Awesome. Well, guys, this has been another episode of Finding Your Competitive Edge. You've heard Charlie's competitive edge. He shared that today in detail. And I want you to think about, where can you take your competitive edge? What makes you unique? What God's gifted you with, and your talents and experiences? Who can you go serve today? That is the challenge. That's what we get an opportunity to do every day. So if you would, leave us a review, leave us comments and all the things there, so we know how we're doing, how we can best serve you. Go follow Charlie. We're going to include his links, all of his social handles, and make sure you sign up for his newsletter. That would be a huge favor I'm asking you guys to do. Thank you so much for tuning in. We appreciate you guys, and we will catch you on the next episode.